All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining today. This talk on flat fees and automation, these are really two game-changing concepts for lawyers. So I'm Andrew Zihmer. I lead Zihmer Law Firm with my wife. We have a seven-figure firm. We only have 6 employees. We have fun. We make a huge difference in our community. We have a blueprint for success because Zihmer Law Firm is a highly automated and completely flat fee law firm. I take 55 days off a year. I go to Disney. We're going back to Disney for our second time in 3 weeks. We like hanging out with our kids. And a ton of our success boils down to flat fees and automation. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about, is how to give you the keys to unlock that for your law firm. So I thought, who on earth would be better to talk to you about that today than to bring out the leading automation infrastructure for law firms and the #1 leader in the planet on law firm pricing. So in the next 42 minutes or so, we're going to show you how flat fees and value pricing works. It's not just a nifty topic, okay? It is the way forward. We're going to be showing you how to automate drafting and the preparation of documents to free up your time and the time of your team. We're going to show you how to take a potential client and get them engaged, paid, and how you can do work in moments. We're talking 60 seconds, 90 seconds. It's incredible. Now, hopefully that sounds intriguing and fun for you. Now, the big question is, why should you listen? Do these people really know how to do this? And I'm going to let you be the judge of that. But I can tell you that as from a law firm that automates and uses flat fees and value pricing, Scott and Brittany really are the experts on this topic. Brittany Hernandez is a lawyer and the head of legal innovation for Gavel. Gavel is the automation infrastructure for modern scalable law practices. So after practicing intellectual property law and representing clients in the entertainment industry, Brittany shifted her focus to how innovations in tech can be used to create solutions for both clients and lawyers after she invented the design and business model for an app that empowers film students and early career filmmakers to access legal counsel fast and free while still paying lawyers at a competitive rate during her MA International Film Business course in London. Today, she helps other solo and small law practices harness the power and potential of advancements in tech to automate, innovate, scale, and diversify their revenue streams in her position with Gavel. Brittany's world-class in leading the charge on how law firms operate. And so, who's Scott? Scott's a CEO and co-founder of AltFee. Scott's a seasoned lawyer turned legal tech founder with over 15 years experience in the industry. Scott understands legal professionals' pain points firsthand. A sought-after speaker, Scott is a global thought leader on the topic of law firm pricing and value-based pricing. I'm proud and honored to call Scott not just a colleague in this space, but a friend as well. He is doing revolutionary work. So today we're going to be talking about this optimization, automation, and how these tools can work independently together. We're going to have time for Q&A. So if you've got questions, make sure you think about them, because we'll take time. And then for those who say, I am ready to do this, I want to move into flat fees, I want more automation, I want this smoother journey, I want to do better, we'll have how to get started. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. It's a very nice intro. Appreciate that. So we're talking about pricing. And we're talking about, as the title suggests, an efficiency penalty. What we're really talking about there is this idea that as firms, as we become more efficient in the work that we're carrying out under an hourly model, we're set up to make less money. We're not rewarded to offer fixed fees, become efficient, and maximize the output that we're creating as a firm. And so what we're going to walk through today, between first a combination of AltFee and then on the Gavel side of things, is how we can successfully offer flat fees. I'm going to share my screen here. And hopefully everyone can see that okay. So the first step of this is offering a flat fee. And then Gavel is going to jump into how we actually efficiently carry out that work. And so I'm going to walk you through a real life example using AltFee as the platform to successfully put together that flat fee proposal. What you can see here, this is an estate planning firm, and we're going to go through the process of scoping and pricing out a power of attorney. What you're looking at right now is a breakdown of all the different types of work that our firm offers. But today we're going to jump into this power of attorney as an example. And so what we're looking at here, this is what we call our pricing guideline. Essentially, this is our centralized source of knowledge for this project type for our firm. You can see we have a base fee associated with this project, and then we have all these lists of factors that typically add to the scope, add to the complexity of a potential piece of work that we're carrying on. So this is really our starting place to go scope and price a new piece of work for a prospective client. So let's go do that. We can go create a new matter for our client. Let's say we're doing this POA. So now what we're able to do is use this template guideline to help us have that really good, thorough upfront conversation we need to have in order to successfully scope out this piece of work. So where firms typically struggle off the start with their flat fees is inaccurately scoping. So let's set up our firm to be successful by having a system that we fall back on so that we can consistently scope out the type of work that we're carrying on. So through this, we're going to be able to go through the analysis leading up to, during conversation, post conversation with this prospective client to figure out which of these elements are required. Obviously, as we're doing this, the dollar amount that we're charging is being updated accordingly. So stage one, let's ensure that we accurately scope out this piece of work. The second stage is a really exciting piece of where things not only are going, but are actually happening right now and fit very nicely into our conversation today. These modifiers are really intended to be a space where we can become systematic in our non-time-based considerations that we look at to price our work. So not only those things that may add to the scope or add to the complexity of the work that we carry on, but what are the other items that we want to look at both internally that may affect what the right price is to charge, and also based on the client's perception of the value, or what's often referred to as more value-based pricing considerations. So this encourages everyone on our team that's going to be taking part in the scoping and pricing process to look at these considerations, can add new and tap into all the ones that you do have, but determine which of these are applicable and price accordingly. So if there's urgency behind the project, we can select that, and that will affect the price accordingly. If the capacity of our team is something we're looking at, and we don't have very much right now, we're gonna have to drop other things in order to get this done, we may charge an additional amount based on that. And so what you see us doing is we have a base fee, sort of the bare minimum that we're gonna charge for this. We have the additional scope, that complexity that's been added as a factor amount. And then we have our modifiers, which is more of the value-based pricing or internal considerations that don't necessarily affect how long the project is gonna take, but affect what the right price is for us to charge. So we can work our way through identifying those factors, looking at the modifiers. And the third piece of that process is more of the client-facing language. How do we want to package up the scope, package up the value of what we're offering in a way that we can then communicate back to our clients via an engagement letter, retainer agreement, proposal email, however we're handling things. We can go through again and determine, which of these items are applicable. Ultimately, with the goal of what Brittany will jump into, and in the example with Gavel, and turn that into an engagement letter. But just want to bring it back to full circle in terms of what the various steps are in this workflow to make sure that you're optimizing your flat fee offerings. One is having our guidelines, which act like templates. That allows us to have a centralized source of knowledge for all of our firm to tap into so that we all can have the confidence that we need to ultimately be successful in the scoping and pricing of our flat fee work. We then use our factors as a way to ensure that we have that really good, thorough conversation up front, make sure that we're doing the best possible job of scoping out the complexity of this work. Our modifiers, making sure we have that systematic and consistent approach to our non-time-based considerations, and then using our description of services to make sure we communicate that all really well back to the client. In our example today, we're just going to be doing a power of attorney, but we do have the ability to, let's say we were doing a more complex estate planning package, we can tap back into our firm's set of guidelines around this and pull the necessary project types in and give each of those individual projects or stages for more complex work the thorough analysis that they deserve to do the best possible job of scoping and pricing that piece of work out. A couple of things I want to chat on. One, our collaboration. So this is where I'm going to add Brittany in. She's going to get notified via email or an app, depending on how she set things up, that she's been added to this matter. We can then use this matter as a way to asynchronously collaborate to make sure that as a firm, we're tapping in and allocating our resources as best as possible to optimize our pricing. The other thing I'm going to jump into here is connecting this to a Clio matter. So we can see we've already have this existing matter open for Olivia within Clio. I'm going to link this up. And for now, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to let Brittany jump in and take over the continuation of the workflow from here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. It's really, really exciting to kind of see you walk through AltFee and just kind of talking through the different points here. I just wanted to point out in the chat that Karen mentioned that using the modifier really allows you to separate your fee structure, how you set up your fees, from the price you ultimately charge the client really transparently. So really thank you for kind of pointing out that point there. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and show you that one of the really amazing things about AltFee as well is the collaboration aspect. So the fact that I have the same I have my own account in AltFee and he's able to add me to this matter and I'm able to see that and go in there and kind of see what happened, maybe review it, make any changes or adjustments if I'm the one carrying out this work. And this was just kind of an initial scoping. But we can also see that now that this has been added to Clio, we'll be able to see that matter that's linked over in the kind of section here where, did you link this one to the power of attorney one that I mentioned here? Let me just double check. So what we should see, Scott, do you want to help me out here on the part for the linking of the activities?
Yeah, you should be able to, if you're in there now in your Clio account, double check if you refresh that.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what we're trying to show you right now is the fact that this has now automatically updated in Clio. So it's making it to where you can just say quick bill, and then you can automatically generate that bill when it's ready, once you're done engaging the client and just reviewing everything else that you want to go through. So you can see that just by linking that matter here, that is appearing here in our dashboard for this client and for this matter, and it's been added as an activity here as well. Now, what I can do with Gavel, now that we have all of this information that's pulled into our legal practice management software, Clio, and one thing I'll note quickly is that you can actually use Gavel completely by itself. You don't have to have an intermediary like this. You can create a workflow for all of the different pieces that I'm going to show you without Clio as well. But if you already use Clio, I'm going to show you how you can use it that way as well. So when you have a Gavel account, what you can do is you can see a dashboard like this. And what Gavel is going to do is it's going to make it to where you're able to automate your own custom templates. So a lot of the time people will use different services that are really, really helpful. But if you have your own templates where you have your own documents, your own language, and you've built these over 25 years of practicing law, and you have your own expertise poured into them, and you want to be able to still use those, but you need to be able to use them efficiently in an automated way that saves you and your firm time. So you can do that with Gavel. So here, for example, we have an engagement letter and an engagement agreement, and we have all of our different highlights for where we need to replace information in our documents for preparing this for our client. Now, when I started in 2020 as a lawyer and I didn't know about legal technology and all these different tools, the way that I would kind of do that is go duplicate, rename, and then go through and say, today's date is May 14th. And, so you kind of would have to do this really manually, or maybe you'd have, a paralegal go through and refer to your notes or your call notes or whatever else, and just kind of manually go through and change everything, save that, and send that off. Now, what you can do with Gavel instead is go through your template quickly and replace those with what's called variables that you can create and customize as you like in what we call the Gavel editor. So when you want to create a new automation, you say new workflow. You can start with your documents, you can start with questions, or you can start with a template. So if you want to start with documents, you can benefit from our generative AI feature called Gavel Blueprint, which makes it to where you're able to just take that document, drop it into our system. It's going to look for all the places that repeat different things like client's name, client's email address, and so on. And it's going to suggest different questions that you can ask, whoever's preparing this, and it's going to generate that for you. But you could also start with questions. So let's just do that here for today's example. So I'm going to say create. And when you want to go through your documents and kind of see where you need different information, you can just go through and say, okay, for the first piece, I'm going to need this section here. I see that I have my client's name coming up in these different places. And then I can make different questions like what's their prefix and so on. I can say client prefix. And this is kind of this idea of rapid development where you're able to just say like, oh, I just need to be able to quickly and rapidly, create a question that I can then interact with, because I can go through now with my Gavel Word add-in and say, I want to be able to now take the information that I built over there and put it in lots of different parts of the of my document here. And then you can actually get really fancy with it. And you can say, only show different conditions, like only show this paragraph if this particular condition is true. For example, let's say if you are doing something where you have lots of different children, say maybe you're saying like only show this paragraph if the person has more than 5 children or whatever else. But what you can see now is that I have linked inside of my Word document the different workflows that I've created and I'm working on actively inside of my Gavel account. So I can see this variable that I just created called client prefix. And I can go through and I can say, okay, I want that to appear here. And I don't have to do any coding at all. I can also change the format, for example, standard uppercase, first letter capital, or whatever else. And I can just say insert variable. And it's going to do all of that kind of coding for me. And I don't have to know anything else, except I want this thing that I made over here to go in here in this document. And also I want this to have this condition or whatever else. So once you've kind of gone through that process, what you'll be able to do is then attach that document to this workflow and run the particular variables. I'm going to show you a different example that's more complete than this one. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this one. And I'll show you what I've created and why, if you have Clio, it would be beneficial to just link these two things together very easily. All you have to do is sign into your account within Gavel for Clio. Okay, so let's go ahead and together create or prepare a limited scope engagement agreement for our client, Olivia, who wants to have the power of attorney, right? So in AltFee, I can see all the information here. In Gavel, all I need to do is say run for this particular one I have here. I can pick, actually, I can actually search just by her first name. Sorry, I can see her first name here. Even though it's not in this title, I can search by other factors relating to this matter, including the client's name. If I want to have the information that was entered into this particular AltFee one, I can just export that and copy it to a clipboard, and I can have it here like this, or I can have something more, simple or standard. But if you want to include all of the information that you kind of made important over here, you can just copy and paste that over to here. And then now that information is going to be populated into your document. And what we'll be able to see in this example is that in just choosing our matter and typing in how we wanted to describe our services and our price, we're actually able to pull quite a lot of information and prepare this entire document. So for example, I've already automatically pulled in the date. I've already automatically pulled in the client's first and last name and email address. I've already made it to where her formatting can be in different ways. I've already pulled in the description or the title of this particular matter. So this in this one, it's called power of attorney for the description of this matter. So that's getting pulled through here. I'm able to see that we have that information formatted here as well as here. And also we're able to see all the other scopes of services that I've included here as well, including the price, that coming from AltFee as well. And then all I need to do when I'm ready to send this off to the client is say submit for signing, because we also have a DocuSign integration, which makes it to where now that this is submitted, I can go over in my particular example to our client's email where they've received the invitation to review this document. They can click right into it, say continue, and start, review the information that you've given them. I can say sign as Olivia Lopez and finish. And now that that process is complete, now the attorney who needs to sign this, if they don't already have their signature on the document, is going to receive an email that says, hey, now it's your turn to sign. You can see that here. We'll be able to review this document, and we'll be able to see that our client has already signed it. We can see their signature here. We just need to sign, adopt and sign, and we say finish. And then everyone gets a copy straight to their email. So in that short process, we were able to prepare an engagement agreement that would have otherwise taken a lot of unnecessary time, especially considering the fact that we already have this information in a lot of different places, right? We don't need to type her name in and the date and all these different things that can be automated because we have legal technology that now assists us in doing that. Now I have, as the client or as the lawyer, the completed document here, the fully executed document right here in my email. Same thing with the client. They automatically get their copy for their records and so on. You can get really fancy and you can set up different automations that also make it to where this document gets automatically added back into the Clio matter under documents, for example. But I won't be demoing that specific aspect today. But just to show you that from just having our information stored in that particular place, and we're able to just kind of quickly choose our matter from here, in a click and a click, we're able to generate our engagement agreement. In one more click, we're able to submit that for DocuSign, and we didn't have to do any manual entry of information we already have. So you'll see how quickly you're able to do that. So the next piece I wanted to go into is around this idea of document delivery. So now that we've engaged our client for this, activity of, generating a power of attorney or preparing a power of attorney for them, we can actually do that with Gavel as well. And it depends on how you would want to bill for this particular matter. If you would want to use Clio for a quick bill here, or if you would want to use some of Gavel's paywall aspects for this as well. If you want it to be, we are able with Gavel to either do everything internally, meaning you and your team are preparing this matter for this document for someone, or you can create a client-facing workflow that makes it to where the client is able to interact with it and even pay right away. So depending on how you want this to be structured, in this particular example, we're preparing it internally. We're actually going to be able to do this in a way that will show you how much money you are kind of saving and making from doing it with Gavel and AltFee. And you're going to see that kind of in AltFee itself. So I'll show you that in a second. I just wanted to quickly point out a few quick things. So in this particular example where we're using Clio, which as I mentioned, you can, or if you don't have Clio, you can use Gavel and AltFee separately without it. It's just a good example of if you already are using it, you can take this information that's already been stored from your conversations with your clients, your initial consultation, your initial design meeting, if you're in estate planning and so on. You're able to see, for example, that here, this matter takes a big picture overview aspect of what's going on here. And the first is that we have Olivia is our client. She wants us to prepare a power of attorney for her. We have her address, her email, her phone, but we also can have other contacts added to this matter, such as her daughter, who is the person that she wants to have be her agent for this power of attorney. So in this particular case, we already have her name and her address and her phone number and all that. So we can actually do this very quickly by doing a process like this. But first, I want to go back into the matter because I want you to be able to see if we were tracking our time, billing versus billing by the hour versus doing kind of that flat fee, how much the difference in price would be if you were kind of doing it that way. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go over to activities. I'm going to say new time entry. I'm just going to go ahead and start the clock, and I'm going to go ahead and prepare this uniform statutory form power of attorney. We're going to do this for Olivia, where we have our matter getting chosen here. I get to choose if she wants a single agent or does she want to designate more than one. In this case, she wants to designate her daughter. This information pulled automatically from Clio, so I didn't have to type anything at all. I just had to confirm that that's what she wanted. I can also see that I can designate the different powers of the agent. So for example, I can say, I want to grant all of these, or I can limit these powers. So this is an example of question logic within Gavel that allows you to show or hide questions depending on an answer. So I can see here that also that I have default answers already clicked. So if I do these all the time and people always generally want these things, but not these two, I can just have that already there. So since you're the expert here, you can know in advance kind of what different people want, but you can also change them if you want. So here, for example, do I want this to continue if I become incapacitated? I can say yes or no. Do I want to add any special instructions? Yes or no. And then I can continue here. From here, I'm able to see a preview of this document that we've generated now that I can then download here. I can see that we have here Olivia's information has pulled through just because I was able to find her matter. We have the address, we have the person, and all the formatting done. If they had more than one, the more than one person's agents would be here as well. And this would say agents versus and attorneys in fact, instead of attorney in fact. We have the different pieces here for the different parts that she would have initialed here. If we wanted to, we could have this special instructions be here from what we wrote, but this is an example of that document having conditions as well. And then also we can have this ready for notarization, which we can also have automatically emailed, for example, to someone that we work with who does, for example, the best notary, who does our signing meetings for our clients. And we have a notary request for this from this law firm saying that we want you to reach out to this client to organize a signing meeting with them. This took 2 minutes and 21 seconds, including the time that it took me to explain different aspects. So maybe it would take a minute if we did it faster, and so on. So what you can see is we're able to set these up ourselves. This is the template that I was working off of, just a uniform statutory form power of attorney. I went through this document myself and just kind of said, okay, I want this to show in this particular instance or this to show in this case. So instead of me having to kind of work through this document in a very clunky way, I can do this in a very seamless way, setting it up one time, and now it's ready for all of my future clients to be able to have those generated very quickly. So I'm going to pass it quickly back over to Scott to be able to kind of walk through what this looks like in AltFee so you can see the differences in what this would mean from a pricing perspective.
Awesome. Jump back in. So we're now back in AltFee after Britt went through the drafting of the power of attorney and going through the full workflow over there. And now what we can see is that over here under our Clio box, we've now captured the amount of time that it took Britt to work on that and pulled that in. And so we can see Dorna in this case, the amount of time that went towards it based on our hourly rate, what that looks like. So we're pulling at that recorded amount and pulling it back into AltFee. And now we can draw this comparison between the flat fee that we've scoped and priced within AltFee against the amount of time and hourly rate that's been recorded towards it to give us that difference. And so this is obviously an extreme example of a project that took 2 minutes to complete. But what this allows you to do is have this dual purpose where we can either ensure that if we didn't do a great job as we're transitioning more of our work towards flat fees, we're going to know of that both during and after a project in a way that's going to really encourage us to continuously learn and soak any of those learnings that we're having back into our system so that we're able to improve every time we offer that type of service again. And then as that system matures, we're going to be able to see something like this, and maybe a little bit less extreme, but something like this that's going to show the difference between what we were able to do from our flat fee perspective compared against how we would have done this if we had done it under the hourly model, and ensure that we're building a system that continually allows us to draw on the margins that we're looking to create with the work that we're offering. And bringing it full circle back to the theme of the webinar, allow us to take advantage of all of our experience and how we're carrying things out to price our work accordingly, where we're not being penalized for the highly efficient systems that we've developed through Gavel in this scenario, and we're instead rewarded for all those efficiency gains that we've created when we have that financial win coming out of it at the end. So I think Britt, unless you have anything else there, press pause and open it up to the floor, I believe.
Yes, let's go ahead and take a few questions, maybe around 10 minutes if we have some in the chat. I haven't had a chance to look just yet, but also then Andrew, after questions, can wrap us up. Do you see any questions in the chat, Andrew, that you wanted to have us cover? Designed to drive. So Brett says in the chat, love any workflows designed to drive flat fixed fee services. Great use of Gen AI too. Would love to chat about getting Gavel involved in the future of Law Summit as well. I'm actually leaving tonight to spend the night at the airport to go to a future law conference in Estonia tomorrow morning at 5 in the morning. So I'm really excited to rep Gavel there. And then we do have the founder and CEO of Gavel on the call here today. Hi, Dorna. Thanks for being here. And then a lot of people ask questions around like security and different things like that. So if she'd like to speak to like how do you protect, you know, information using AI and different questions like that, then there are 2 other questions we can address as well.
Definitely. Thank you, Brittany. I actually, can you guys see me? All right.
Yes.
Hello. I'm logging in from my phone because my computer Zoom wasn't connecting, but I actually am about to do so we have a lot of security information. If you go to gavel.io/security. However, I'm actually about to do a post. I have a social media channel where I publicize a bunch of information about tech tips for lawyers. And one of the next posts that I'm about to do is on AI security and what you should be asking your vendors for. A few things I'll note just right off the bat that I will share on that post live with everyone as well. But one is whenever you're looking at different softwares, look at where is your data going and what is the data partnership between the software company and the LLM. So a lot of software vendors are plugged into platforms like OpenAI or Google or Anthropic or another LLM. These tools all have multiple tiers of service that actually allow for varied use of data. So for example, at Gavel, our partnerships prevent any of these LLMs or any of these companies from retaining any data or using any Gavel client data for training. Second, make sure that your client data is not being used by the software for their training sets. So similarly at Gavel, we don't use your client data to train our models. And also each of our clients' data is maintained in a separate environment from other clients. Few other things that I'll mention. I know this isn't an AI security session, but just one more thing I'll mention here is just on how and where your data is being stored. So ask about that whenever you're using any vendor. This is super important to us. Our entire team at Gavel is either lawyers and legal professionals or very like serious technologists who have worked at larger companies and really understand security. We go through regular penetration testing. So one other thing that I'll mention is make sure that your data is encrypted end to end, in transit and at rest. It has encryption key management and data segregation. That's all things that we also cover. So if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, Dorna at gavel.io, and we'd love to share more.
Thank you, Dorna. That was super helpful. And I totally put her on the spot. She was not expected at all to answer any questions. That's my job, but thank you. But I was gonna say there are a lot of really good questions around Gavel as well in the chat. So let me just address those really quick. So I hope that answers your question, Lisa. For Catherine, is there a way to have the document sent via a secure portal, such as Decision Vault, rather than unsecured traditional email? The answer is yes. So there's 2 different ways you could kind of set this up. The first is you can set up a webhook at the end of your workflow to trigger that the documents get sent to somewhere that you would designate. The other is that you can use a third-party tool called Zapier, for example, that has both Gavel and Decision Vault on it. So you can just say, when a workflow is completed in Gavel, I want you to put that information or whatever documents, etc., into Decision Vault. So you are able to do that. Yes, you don't have to email it to them if you don't want to. Okay, so Michael asks, looks like it's a great solution, but what about setting this up? How difficult is it to get the systems to work together? So as I mentioned and kind of demonstrated, it's very easy depending on which way you want to go. So if you want to use Gavel Blueprint, that's the easiest way to do it, because what we're just saying is just take your document and just put it into Gavel, just drag and drop it like you would when you're uploading an image or other type of document on any other platform. It's going to just go through and pull those for you. And all you need to go through and do is just say like, yes, I want this to ask me this question when I'm ready to prepare it, add any conditions and so on. There are a lot of videos on Gavel's YouTube channel that can go through a 10-minute demo of how to do that as well. So it's especially as what I showed with the Word add-in, for example. You don't have to know how to code or anything like that. You just need to know your expertise of like what your practice area is, and be able to say, I know that I need this particular information to go here, and I also need this question to be conditioned on this other question. So you need to know the logic or the different sets of pieces of information that need to go into the document, for example. But you don't need to learn how to do, you know, HTML and Python and CSS and all that, because you have the Word add-in that's going to help you with that as well. So does Gavel provide training to users on how to set up the document automation of forms? So I actually personally have out of my role in Gavel before I started an academy where we have a lot of free courses on how to do that. Also, there's a really robust learning center on Gavel's website. So there's a lot of videos, there's a lot of information on how to use the tool. And then obviously also our customer service team is very, very good, our customer success team. And they're able to go through and sit down with you and have a one-to-one call where you can go through a strategy session with them, and you can ask all of your different questions, and they're happy to do that. So don't be shy to do that. So the answer is yes, in lots of different ways. So next one is how do you get AltFee and Gavel to work together? So as you kind of saw, AltFee and Gavel work together in this particular example through the intermediary of Clio, where you have, you know, information that gets passed through from, you know, AltFee into Clio, and then Clio can go straight directly into Gavel. If you wanted them to work otherwise, there's not like a direct link otherwise, in the sense that like AltFee is directly integrated with Gavel. But if you think about what you're doing in AltFee and what you're doing in Gavel, they don't need to talk to each other much more than to communicate the price of the engagement and maybe the information that we copied and pasted in from the clipboard. But Scott, you can speak to that as well if you have any additional points.
Yeah, I think that's right. Between the two platforms, they each operate independently. The connection often comes through that engagement letter piece, or the transfer of that description of scope, description of value, and ultimately that dollar amount that you want to get from AltFee and put into your engagement letter within Gavel. And that can be done, as Britt represented, just with a simple copy and paste. And if you do happen to be a Clio customer as well, then through both of our individual integrations with them, there's a bit more efficiency that can happen through there.
That's helpful. A couple of points. Andrew, you kind of mentioned in the chat. Do you want to speak to your point in the chat?
Sure. Yeah. So we use Gavel extensively at Zihmer Law Firm. I do come from the software world, so sometimes for me it is really those things Brittany touched on. I'm used to that. My wife has taken over all development of the workflows, the documents, everything. She has zero tech background and has made insanely in-depth and really thorough workflows with all of the different branching and logic that you're thinking that might exist in some other types of software. We do all of that in Gavel, and we knock stuff out in an evening after work, watching TV, working on it. I mean, this stuff is truly easy to put in place. If you get jammed up and get a little stuck, the help and support at Gavel is, I've never interfaced with something else. We can put a request in for, I'm truly stuck with this variable to do something complex, and they go, here you go, this is everything to go, and turn us loose. So if you're worried about, can I make complex documents to do this, you can, but then you can really speed it up. Right now we're working on another revision to do an entire like joint revocable trust plan with powers of attorney, wills, documents, letters, the entire thing. And our goal is to have a virtual assistant overseas be able to do it in less than 6 minutes. And that is definitely a benchmark that we can achieve, but we can only achieve that with a tool like Gavel.
That's helpful. I want to also point out that Karen says that AltFee is also really easy to set up and use. So thank you for that. Karen, Daniel asked, how do we get more information on AltFee? Been using Gavel a long time, but not AltFee. So Scott has added his personal email as well as the company website there. We'll also have a final slide or two around how you can kind of go from here now that you know all of these really amazing things about how you can implement these flat fees in a flash with Gavel and AltFee. And then Karen says you can set up your first guidelines in minutes and then tweak them and develop them over time. And if you've got historical pricing data, even if you're doing hourly billing, it's even better. So that's super helpful because obviously I'm a lawyer as well. You know, when I was kind of more practicing traditional law, I actually used Clio at first and then, you know, kind of did other tools as well. But I even track my time now, even though I'm doing, you know, my work at Gavel, I still am like typing in and I just got so used to it. But the point being that now we have, because I've been doing that for so many years, historical data about how much time it takes me to prepare these types of things. And so that's what's going to be really helpful when you're starting to scope out how much these projects, you know, used to cost you when you were doing it by the hour, and now turning that into flat fees where you can kind of put these modifiers, which I think are really helpful. It's like, it's not just the price or scoping just the price of the document and the value of that document, but also the value of our team's time and like what we're going to have to switch away from and all the other modifiers you kind of saw from Scott's demonstration. So I'm going to pass it back over to Andrew to close this out if you want to share that again and let everyone know how to get going.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Just a huge thank you, Brittany, Scott. Thank you so much for your time. Dorna, even for popping in and, you know, adding a little bit of, especially on that AI and data security, that's so useful. So I really appreciate it. I mean, folks, we saw how you can scope the ease and what AltFee can do to build out simple to crazy complex proposals to then feed into the engagement letters. You see the back end of how simple you can go start building out these workflows and then documents in Gavel, which is really great. In that kind of time savings, we see that at the law firm. Like, this was not a cherry picked scenario. This is truly like things can be this easy. You can get things that would take you hours down to minutes. And then you get to either have insanely good profit, spend more time on the challenging parts, or meeting face to face with clients, or whatever you do, or you can use it to change and kind of upend the apple cart on how is this going to change the legal industry, and you get to be at the tip of the spear on that. So this was exciting. I hope you guys got the, you know, all the details and things that we did. Here's some, you know, if you want to learn more about using Gavel, or you say I'm ready, let's go do that. Brittany can get you set up with a free trial. Same for AltFee. If you're looking at this and going, man, we need some help on getting this thing scoped, this would be a big game changer. I want to look more at that. Set up time to either get your free trial, or either one of them can do demos and go from there. Make sure that you're following Dorna. She is a huge voice on social media on all kinds of things tech related, automation, but just kind of everything, especially as data security and AI. She's had a lot of great content that's really useful for everybody. If you want more information, I've got a lot of free resources and mastermind groups as well on my end. If you say, hey, I want to learn how to implement things like this or run this type of law firm, I'd be happy to help as well. And so just here's a slide with contact information, everybody, from my end. Thank you so much for joining, and anything else.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for hosting us, for Scott for being such a great partner, and for all of you for coming. Scott, any last words before we wrap us up?
No, that's it. Thank you everyone for joining. That was a great session. Appreciate it.
Amazing. I'll circulate the recording in a moment. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.